Well, the high school hockey playoffs came to a quick close for our area teams. The boys basketball playoffs start tonight, and we'll also get you updated on the end of the girls basketball season as they get ready for the postseason as well. It's all coming up on this Get Stuck on Sports Thumb Coast TV edition. I'm your host, Dennis Stuckey. Let's start this time around with the hockey playoffs because unfortunately they went pretty quickly. We'll start in Division 1. That's where Port Huron Unified and Anchor Bay were. They were at the same regional at Suburban Ice Arena, and in fact, they played each other in the opening game. It was a very good hockey game. Anchor Bay ended up winning 2-0, but this was a 1-0 game with under a minute to go before the Tars finally put it to bed with a power play goal in a game where PH just kind of ran out of gas at the end. They were a little shorthanded going into the game, and by the midway point of the third period, they just didn't have a lot left in the tank. Even though they were only down a goal, it was hard for them to sustain any pressure and get any good quality chances. And then at the end, they started taking penalties, and they really didn't have a hope at that point. But a 2-0 game, they played hard. Anchor Bay played hard. They moved on to the regional semifinals where they met Eisenhower, the number one seed in this regional, and Ike doubled them up 6-3. Finaprea scored a couple of goals in this one for the Tars. He finishes the season with 28 goals. That's a pretty good year, but both PH and Anchor Bay eliminated from Division 1 in the regional at Suburban Ice Arena. On to Division 2, which was at St. Clair Shores. Northern really played a great hockey game, maybe the best that I'd seen them play this season, and they held the lead throughout the contest against L'Anse Creuse Unified. Unfortunately, at the end, Unified was able to tie the game up late in the third period and then win it in overtime. 4-3, they beat the Huskies. Logan Jarvie scored all 4 goals for L'Anse Creuse in that game. Northern led 2-1 at the end of the first period, and they took the lead in the third 3-2, just 24 seconds into the third period on a goal by Fagan. It was the first goal he had scored this year, so you can imagine there was quite a celebration when he got that one. And for a long time, it looked like it was going to be a game-winning goal, but the Huskies were eliminated by L'Anse Creuse, who then went on to lose to Rochester in the semifinal. The other semifinal is where Thumb Legion was playing, and they fell to the host, St. Clair Shores Unified. 7-3 was the final in that one. They did get a couple of goals from Chase Talaski in that loss. So both Northern and Thumb Legion eliminated from Division 2. Our only D3 team was Marysville. They got off to a great start. They blew out Grosse Pointe North 7-0 in their opening game. But the reward for winning that game was they had to play Cranbrook in the next game, and Cranbrook shut them down. 5-0, the Cranes beat the Vikings, ending Marysville's season, and it was a quick playoff. All the teams were out by Friday of last week. So that puts the focus now on basketball and its postseason, and we'll get to the boys because the boys' postseason actually begins Monday night, and we'll take a look at all the districts involving all the teams from the Blue Water area in just a second. But real quick, the ladies still have a little bit of basketball to play, and there'll be a really big game this week, set up by 2 games at the end of last week. Thursday night, Armada beat North Branch 41-28, and on Friday night, Yale defeated Croslex 47-27, 23 points for Sadie Dykstra. So what that means is Yale clinched a share of the BWAC title with that win. They went to 13-0. Armada, with their win, went to 12-1, and they're still a game back with a game to play. And yes, it's at Armada Tuesday night, Yale at Armada. If Yale wins, they're the outright champs. If Armada wins, we'll have a tie for the BWAC championship between those two teams. Now, the last 3 years in the BWAC, it's just been Yale and Armada. 2 years ago, Yale beat out Armada by 1 game. Last year, the two teams tied for the championship, and this year, with a game to go, Yale's already guaranteed a piece of the pie, their 3rd straight league title. Armada's trying to get their 2nd straight league title if they can win on Tuesday night at home. That one tips off at 7:30. If you're in the area and you don't have anything to do, that'll be a really good game. The boys decided the BWAC championship on Friday night. Here's the deal. Croslex came in with a game lead on their own home court. Yale needed to win to make it a share of the title. And guess what? Yale got a share of the title. They beat Croslex handily, 60-41. Jackson Kohler with 20 points, and both teams go 13-1 in the BWAC. They split the two games that they played, Croslex winning at Yale and Yale winning at Croslex. So Croslex and Yale shared the BWAC Boys Championship. All right, let's get into the boys postseason, which tips off tonight. We'll start in Division I. This district is over at Dakota High School. This is where Port Huron and Port Huron Northern are at. PH opens the district with a game against L'Anse Creuse. This is a winnable game for PH. I would call this about a 50-50 matchup. So the Red Hawks do have an opportunity to win this game and move on to the district semifinal on Wednesday. The team that's waiting for the winner of this game, though, is the host school, Dakota, and they are the number one seed in this district. So if PH wins, or if L'Anse Creuse wins, they really are a heavy underdog in the next game against Dakota. L'Anse Creuse North and Anchor Bay also play tonight, with the winner facing Port Huron Northern on Wednesday. Again, L'Anse Creuse North is probably going to beat Anchor Bay. Are they good enough to beat Northern? Remember, Northern and L'Anse Creuse North were the district final last year when the district was at Port Huron, and a lot of people thought Northern was going to win that game last year, and L'Anse Creuse North got them. So, assuming it's L'Anse Creuse North beating Anchor Bay tonight, Northern will get a shot to at least avenge last year's finals loss, and then hopefully get back into the finals where they'll meet probably, most likely, Dakota on Friday. All right, in Division 2, we have a couple of districts that we're following. One up in Yale, where Almont and North Branch meet tonight for the right to lose to Yale on Wednesday. Sorry, guys, but that's probably what's going to happen. And Croslex and Imlay City are the other semifinal. Now, a week ago, I think a lot of people just assumed it was automatic Croslex was getting to the finals and that we were going to have a Croslex-Yale round 3. I don't think that's automatic. Imlay City's playing really good basketball. They're a tough team. And to be quite honest, down the stretch, Croslex really hasn't played that well. They got blown out by Harbor Beach in a non-league game. Then they needed 4 overtimes to get past Almont and actually ensure that they got at least a share of the league title. And then they were beaten rather soundly on their home court by Yale. So Croslex kind of comes limping into this one, and Imlay City is not an easy game, so it's not a guarantee that Croslex is getting through, but if they did, most likely it would be to play Yale unless there is a major upset on the other side of the bracket at this district. Marine City is also hosting a Division II district. The games tonight, Marysville will play Algonac. Marysville is a heavy favorite to win this game, and then they would get Armada in the next game. And a Marysville-Armada matchup right now, to me, is about a 50-50 toss-up. I like the way both these teams are playing. Armada has really improved down the stretch after a very tough start to their season. They've played their best basketball in the second half. And Marysville, we know one thing about the Vikings. They'll play hard. That could be a really interesting matchup. The other side of the bracket is Marine City and Richmond. Now, Richmond won a regular season meeting, but this was back earlier in the year, 50-48 at Richmond. Since then, Marine City's really played well, and Richmond has really struggled to find more wins. And so I think Marine City, especially at home, will be the favorite here against Richmond. And then waiting for them is their arch rivals from St. Clair. So St. Clair, to me, is the best team in this district. They're the team to beat. However, I think Marine City's been playing really good basketball of late. I think Marysville and Armada have both been playing really good basketball of late. So it's not going to be a slam dunk for St. Clair, but I would actually be surprised if the Saints didn't win this district. In Class C, or Division III, we call it nowadays. I'm old. I just gave that away. At Brown City, Marlette and Landmark tonight. The winner gets Sandusky. And the other side of that bracket has K-Pac going up against Brown City. I'm really not sure what to expect out of this. I think Sandusky is the best team in this district, but I have seen K-Pac play this season, and I do think that they're at least capable. I really don't know what Brown City has. I think they've struggled through much of the year, and Marlette and Landmark have both struggled as well this season. And at Centerline Prep, which I think is a new school, because Centerline isn't that big of a place, and I think I would have noticed if they had a second school before now. But Centerline Prep is hosting the district here. Mount Clemens and Memphis play tonight, and the winner of that game gets New Haven. New Haven is by far and away the heavy favorite to win this district. They're a league champ in the MAC Silver this year. The other side of the bracket is Centerline Prep against Clintondale. I don't even know what Centerline Prep's record is this year. That's how little I know about that school, and I follow this stuff. All right, over in Flint at Flint Beecher, Beecher will take on Peck tonight. It's been a pretty good season for the Peck Pirates. We'll see how they do against the Flint Beecher team that probably might be a slight favorite just because they're at home. Kingston awaits the winner of this game. Dryden plays Mayville. Dryden just blew out Mayville by 40 points last week. And then they would play Kimball New Life Christian. So Dryden is actually a favorite to get to the finals here. And who they would play? Well, it'll either be Peck, Flint Beecher, or Kingston. Take your pick. At Marine City Cardinal Mooney, if Cardinal Mooney does not win their district, there ought to be an investigation. And I know Mike McAndrews won't love me saying that, but Mike, you got to win this district. Pontiac Excellence is playing Austin Catholic for the right to lose to you in the district semifinal. And on the other side of the bracket, New Haven Merit and Parkway Christian. So it's probably going to be a Mooney Parkway Christian final. And if it isn't, again, there needs to be an investigation going on out there. And the final district that involves teams from our area is out in Akron Fairgrove. CPS will play Akron Fairgrove. The winner will get Ubley, and North Huron will play Caseville. The winner will play Deckerville. I would think Ubley and Deckerville are going to be your final, which might not be good news for Deckerville because Ubley just beat them by about 30 points again last week. But we'll see. Both Ubley and Deckerville have had decent seasons this year up in the Big Thumb Conference. So that gets you caught up on what's happening with the boys. And again, boys districts begin tonight and run all week. And then it'll be regionals next week for the boys, and the girls will start their districts next week as they wrap up the regular season. Besides that Yale Armada game in girls basketball, Croslex hosting the Port Huron girls later in the week in a rare 4:30 start for a varsity game up in Croswell. That'll be on Thursday. And hats off to the Northern boys. They closed out the regular season with a 70-68 win over Pontiac Notre Dame Prep. And that's a nice win to get before you go into a playoffs where you're going to have to face L'Anse Creuse North and Dakota. To know that you were good enough to beat Notre Dame Prep, you're good enough to beat either of those two teams. All right, that's all we have for this edition of the Get Stuck on Sports Thumbcoast TV edition. I'm Dennis Stuckey. Thanks for watching.